joining us in episode 19 of the Immigrants Bridge Show. As you know, I'm Attorney B. It's so nice to see you. Tonight, we have a wonderful guest with us. Not only is she thebomb.com, she's also a wonderful friend of mine and confidant. So tonight, we will be joined by Andrea Estrella Roya, and she is a licensed marriage and family therapist. So as you guys come on ahead and jump in, probably about 7:05, we will go ahead and start our conversation with Miss Andrea. And we'll go from there. We're going to have a great time learning about mental health during this COVID-19 crisis. So hope you have lots of questions to ask. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. We are very, very excited to have the opportunity to be with you and to answer any questions that you have. So, I only have one rule on the show. If you stop in, definitely go ahead and say hello in the comments so that we can see you. Right now, we're in our studio, so we're not necessarily able to see everyone on Facebook. So please say hello to Miss Andrea, say hello to me, and we'll go from there. You want to say hi, Miss Andrea?
Hello, everybody. I am honored, and it's a pleasure to be on here with the amazing, like she said, the bomb.com, the OG bomb.com, Bridget Bennett. She shows just such an amazing mentor to so many different people and just an amazing attorney.
Well, thank you. We definitely have an interesting story. Maybe we'll tell it. Maybe we won't. We'll see. Depends on, how our audience is tonight. So,
yeah.
Hey, Juan, it's so nice to see you. Hey, Nieves, all the way from Jacksonville. Nice to see you. Miss Myrna's on. Arthur, all the way from Boston. You are like a national star. Did you know that?
Love it.
Let's see if we get any international people tonight. That would be super cool.
I can't say that I can translate into anything other than Spanish. I speak a little Portuñol and a little bit of French. Un petit peu, mais pas beaucoup. And that's it.
I didn't know that. That's great.
I've been actually working a lot with attorneys who have Haitian clients, so Creole speaking, and I get by. It's not perfect French, like I said. I studied it for 6 years, just didn't practice it enough afterwards.
Oh, parlez-vous français? The only French I know is je ne parle pas français. I don't speak French. And voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir? That's the only French I know.
Lady Marmalade.
Don't get me singing now.
We'll have to have a karaoke.
We will, definitely. Oh, look, we have some more people tuning in. Attorney Shelley. Hey, Attorney Shelley.
Hello.
Myrna. Arthur from Boston says, hi, Attorney B. Hi, Miss Andrea. Welcome.
Hello, Arthur. And Charmaine, I see.
Yeah. Oh, are you able to see?
Yeah.
Perfect. Sometimes I have some trouble seeing everything. And sometimes if people post so fast, it just kind of rolls and gets away from us.
Yes.
So
what I can explain real fast is that so licensed marriage and family therapist, a lot of people, I say that it's a misnomer because most of the time when I was doing only therapy, most of the people that I saw were individuals. It's just that we see problems and mental health in a very different way than some other branches. So,
why not? Let's get into it.
Yeah.
So tonight, hey, Miss Veronica, it's nice to see you. Tonight, we are going to have a really great session with Miss Andrea here. Let me pull up her bio and then we will jump in. So you know that you are really talking to therapeutic royalty here, okay? Therapeutic royalty.
Bridget.
So Miss Andrea Estrella Roa, She is a licensed marriage and family therapist and also the owner of AER Mental Health Services. Mrs. Estrella Roa has been trained in a variety of systemic therapies applicable to most mental health issues. She graduated with her master's in marriage and family therapy from Valdosta State University and earned her bachelor's of psychology from the University of Florida.
Go Gators.
This is the only point of contention in our relationship because I'm a Noel.
We can live harmoniously.
We can live harmoniously. We have
the title. It's fine.
So she is a clinical fellow in the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapy and the Florida Association of Marriage and Family Therapy. She has extensive experience working with individuals and families in a variety of settings, including working with sexual abuse victims, physical abuse victims, domestic violence victims, the homeless, adolescents, couples, and families with everyday problems. So without further ado, I am very pleased to introduce you to my friend and professional colleague, Mrs. Andrea Estrella Roa.
Hello. And Bridget had requested that I go ahead and translate as well. So I'll go ahead and give my bio in Spanish. Me llamo Andrea Estrella Roa. Soy una terapeuta licenciada de parejas y familias aquí en el estado de Florida. La experiencia mía es basada mayormente en traumas o familias que han pasado, familias e individuos que han pasado por abuso físico, abuso sexual, violencia doméstica, han sido homeless, no tienen casa, y también personas que tienen problemas de todos los días, los problemas cotidianos, ¿verdad? So, yo me gradué de la Universidad de Florida, por eso fue que hicimos así, Go Gators, con la licenciatura en psicología y hice mi maestría en la Universidad de Valdosta State. So, that is in Spanish, Bridget. There it is.
I love it. So I'm so happy that Miss Andrea is giving my Spanish a break tonight. So no vocabulary class because everything will be properly translated.
Well, I'm not going to promise that either. But
yeah. So can you tell us, where are you from? Or
yeah. So I was born in New York, but my parents are Dominican, and so they actually met. They're from Dominican Republic. They met in Brooklyn, New York, and then that's where Andrea comes from. And then my husband is Dominican as well.
Mm-hmm. So en español.
So, ¿verdad? And I have to get you. Mis padres son dominicanos. Yo nací en Nueva York. Y ellos se conocieron en Nueva York, y entonces desde ese entonces nosotros nos mudamos a Florida en el 1992, y yo también me casé con un dominicano.
Oh, fantástico. He's great. Andrea and her husband are like the best dancers ever.
No.
Cut the rug, okay?
Two promises. You are overselling.
So why did you decide to get into mental health?
So from the time I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to work within the helping professions. For a while, I wanted to be a doctor. Then I was going to be a teacher. I went back to doctor, and then I was going to be a nurse. When I got to college, I actually went in as pre-med, but a little secret about Ms. Andrea Estrella Roa, she doesn't like to study, and so that wasn't going to work. And so I switched majors a couple times, landed on psychology. I was always in psychology. It always fascinated me how the mind works. How do people function within groups and within families? I come from a massive family. My mom is one of 16 kids. And so, we have so much to, when I look at the types of families that we were studying in my psychology classes. We are definitely the enmeshed type of family where, but it's functional. And so it was so fascinating to me to understand, how does that work? Why does it work? And then later, how do I use that to help people and really help people, not just put a Band-Aid on things. I wanted to help people really change their lives. And so I really found that in marriage and family therapy. I went to one of the best marriage and family therapy programs at Valdosta State University. It is just, it was a life-changing experience. And so, I did it. I think and I also joke that I like to talk and I like to ask questions. And so I literally made a profession out of talking and asking questions without it coming off as rude, because people are paying me to do so. En español ahora. So Bridget me había preguntado cómo fue que yo me entré en esta rama, en esta profesión. Yo lo que le dije fue que yo desde pequeña sabía que quería entrar en una profesión donde iba a ayudar a los otros. Yo vengo de una familia grandísima. Mi mamá es una de 16 hijos y nosotros fuimos los beneficiantes de entender de que uno se necesita al otro. Mi familia y mis abuelos siempre se cuidaban, mis tías y mis tíos siempre estaban ahí uno para el otro. So, yo desde ahí yo dije, bueno, tal vez quiero ser doctora, tal vez quiero ser maestra, tal vez quiero ser enfermera, siempre algo en ayudar a los otros. Pero cuando llegué a la universidad me di cuenta que a mí no me gusta estudiar tanto. Entonces no perseguí la carrera de doctora, pero sí seguía con lo de psicología. La psicología me fascinó en tratar de entender cómo es que el cerebro funciona, cómo es que las personas funcionan en la sociedad y en sus familias. Y entonces ya cuando escogí terapia de parejas y familias, cómo ayudar a esas personas en sus familias, en sus sistemas más mayores, pero no solamente ponerle una curita a los problemas, pero sino realmente ayudar a las personas a cambiar su vida por completo. Y esa rama de parejas y familias realmente me ha ayudado mucho en hacer eso.
Fantástico. Pues tenemos mucha gente mirando. So just want to say hello to Miss Veronica, Danielle, Laura. Nice to see you, Laura. Miss Tiffany, Miss Carol. They're all saying hello. Miss Mary, Miss Henry, Miss Pauline, Sabiella, Attorney Rachel is on. Miss Marina is on. Yeah, it's fantastic. So that's a very interesting way to start your professional career. So let me ask you this. During this time of the coronavirus, have you been more busy? What's going on with your practice?
So, as you know, my practice has really morphed over these past 6 years, where I had started doing, when I first went off on my own, I was only doing therapy and then doing some immigration evaluations. I was only working maybe with 5 attorneys at the time. And so I had time to do therapy and I had a full caseload, and then Pulse happened. And after the Pulse massacre, I ended up seeing over 40 victims of the Pulse shooting and helping facilitate in the city of Orlando with all the commemoration activities, everything else. So at that time, I was very therapy heavy, right? So that was all therapy. I was doing immigration evaluations, but not as many at that time. But probably around we're in 2020. So in 2018, I changed my practice to solely focused on immigration mental health evaluations, because I was being referred to a lot more often, and I just didn't have the time necessarily to see my therapy clients as much as they needed and give them the energy that they needed to really form those relationships. So at the beginning of COVID, I thought, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because my natural inclination is to jump on it. So I immediately started looking, was I going to offer crisis counseling? Was I going to offer all these things? But I didn't know how immigration was going to respond. So how are we going to, were the clients going to not call in? How financially were they going to be able to, be able to continue getting evaluations and everything else.
Mhm.
So the first 2 weeks were kind of slow, but now we're right back and we're like booming, because I think a lot of immigration attorneys are now, looking at cases, and so working from home. And so there's a lot of cases coming in and we're right back to busy, really, really busy again. I know that there are other mental health counselors and there are other marriage and family therapists and social workers who they are getting inundated with calls right now. Mostly anxiety, depression, worried about kids in this time period, especially adolescents, because this is a really tough time for them, especially those graduating seniors with all this uncertainty right now. And so, my colleagues within the mental health field are definitely busy and most have really started offering, obviously, all telehealth. And so they have opened up new services to be able to service our clients and our populations to make it accessible for most of our clients during this time. So Bridget me había preguntado durante esta crisis de COVID-19, cómo es que mi oficina específicamente ha respondido y cómo ha sido impactada por el COVID-19. Yo le expliqué a ella que desde cuando yo comencé la práctica hace 6 años, yo tenía una combinación de terapia, pero también de evaluaciones. No tantas evaluaciones porque en ese tiempo estaba trabajando solamente con como 5 abogados. Pero ya después de la masacre de Pulse, realmente yo duré 1 año solamente viendo clientes de la masacre. So yo terminé ayudando directamente más de 40 víctimas de la masacre, haciendo consejería, terapia, ayudando a la ciudad con los servicios de conmemoración a la masacre. Y ya después de eso, como en el 2018, yo realmente me enfoqué en las evaluaciones de inmigración, porque realmente con la cantidad que me estaba entrando, ya yo no tenía tanto tiempo para ofrecer la terapia para mis clientes que realmente se merecen la energía y el tiempo que uno tiene que realmente dedicarle para formar esa relación terapéutica que se necesita para crear ese cambio que realmente las personas necesitan y añoran. So ahora mismo, al principio de la crisis, sí se me bajó un poco porque obviamente había mucha inseguridad con lo de inmigración y qué era lo que iba a pasar o no pasar. Pero ya estamos súper ocupados otra vez, pero todavía estamos viendo personas, obviamente, por video. Lo que sí le dije a Bridget también es que mis colegas están inundados con clientes, porque mis colegas ahora mismo, obviamente, sin poder ver sus clientes en persona, y también con tantas personas en sus casas sufriendo de ansiedad, depresión, bregando con sus niños que están igual, sufriendo de depresión y ansiedad, de incertidumbre sobre la crisis y la situación ahora mismo. Ellos han cambiado su modo de terapia y la mayoría están ofreciendo lo que se dice telehealth. So es terapia por videocámara. So lo hacen sobre formas seguras y entonces ahora están ofreciendo esos servicios por video para ayudar a las personas a bregar con la ansiedad, con depresión, con estrés en general. Y realmente ellos de lo que yo he percibido, están muy, muy, muy ocupados igual.
Wow. So before we get into some coping techniques, how you mentioned people are really suffering from stress and anxiety, and maybe even as far as depression. Before we kind of get into that, let's really talk about this stigma that surrounds brown people.
Yes.
Okay. So the minute, if I'm meeting with someone and I'm talking about the fact that we might need a mental health evaluation from your firm, they're like, but I'm not crazy.
Yep.
Like, yes, you are.
No,
Just don't do it.
they are not.
Well, I actually turn it into a joke. I turn because normal, especially the men.
Oh,
the
yeah.
minute I say you have to go to a mental health therapist, they look at me like I'm crazy.
Absolutely.
And I have to joke with them. I'm saying, I'm not saying you have to go because you're crazy. I'm saying it because you told me you're crazy. and then it kind of breaks the tension. But I really want us to talk about, why do brown and black and Latinos and Caribbean people, why is
Yes.
there such a stigma
Mhm.
associated with mental health?
Yes. Um, Historically, if you think about it, it's not something that has been accessible to brown
Mm,
communities, right? For so long, mental health was a luxury of the rich, of the privileged,
mhm.
who had the ability to pay for it out of pocket.
Right.
And then, especially when you look at how mental health treatment began in the psychoanalytic field, where the idea was that basically you were in therapy for years. That's kind of the modality at the very beginning. Once again, for the rich, for the privileged. And the only psychological treatment or mental health treatment available to anyone was what? Psych wards. So if you think about that, the only time that you would oh, and then on top of that, those who were able to get mental health treatment never spoke about it. So it was secret. You know, you don't talk about those things.
Mhm.
So, when you add all those different layers to that, then it comes with the stigma later on. Obviously, the field of psychology and of mental health is actually a new field in comparison to medicine itself, Western medicine.
Mhm.
If you think about it, therapy per se, how we know it today, is not something that really came about till maybe like 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's not in the grand scheme of things, it's new, it's a baby. So once again, who's going to first grab onto it and have access to it? The rich, the privileged. Most of our population, as you know, I shouldn't say, we obviously have people within our community who are successful and who have access to money and the resources, but the stigma is still there because it's ingrained in us.
Mhm.
In Dominican Republic, my parents talk about in Dominican Republic, there's a day, El Día de los Locos. Like, it's so
They have
ingrained.
their own day.
They have their own day in our culture, and you don't talk about your problems. I was actually talking to a client, explaining this to trying to really bridge that gap of mental health treatment, and said, we as a community, brown, black, Latino, immigrant, really across the board, immigrant, especially in the United States, at some point, all immigrants come in, and, if it's a large group of them, they don't tend to come in all at a privileged state, right? And so they are coming from another country, they're coming to learn a new language, they're coming with no resources. These are people who have survived something that most cannot, right? I think about my mom, who came from a mountain in Dominican Republic, literally a mountain with an outhouse for there's no plumbing, there's nothing. To go from there to Brooklyn on an L train,
Traumatic.
it is mind-boggling when you think about that. And how many of our clients, Bridget, that we've had in common can tell you the same type of story, right? And so they have crossed deserts, they have crossed countries, they have been through so much that, at the end of the day, they tend to think, this is just one more thing. I've already survived this. I'm not depressed. I'm not anxious.
Mhm.
I'll just get over it. It's life. Our immigrant population just tends to chalk up struggle and chalk up challenges and chalk up difficult times as part of life,
Wow. That's
that they
powerful.
don't that they don't need to talk to anybody else about. And those who do just aren't doing it right. Either pray about it, because of the strong religious component to most of our immigrant communities. Just pray about it, talk to God about it. You don't need to talk to anybody else about it. Because if you do, you're opening yourself up to being weak. You're opening yourself up to also paying somebody to talk to them about your problems. Come on.
Mhm.
That's kind of our attitude about it. But
That's
they'll go ahead and pay a personal trainer. They'll go ahead and pay for other things for their well-being, but they won't pay a professional to help them look at their lives in a different way and potentially help them change you know, my whole theory is if I can help my clients change how they see themselves in the world, I can then help them behave differently in the world and intake what the world is giving to them in a different way. So that's, you know, that's how I do therapy. But obviously, you're not going to get that from a Joe Schmo down the street. You know, you have to, that's a professional, that's someone who's been trained in that. So I think that that has a lot to do with our mental health stigma. It has so many factors. It's very, you know, to talk about it like, you know, in 5 minutes, you know, I could do like a whole you know, a whole historical thing for a week as to why our poor and our immigrant populations, you know, lower SES, so lower socioeconomic status, even Americans don't seek mental health treatment. Right. So it crosses, it really has more to do, obviously, with culture, but it also has a lot to do with your socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
So that was a lot. So let me say that in Spanish now. So lo que me preguntó Bridget, la abogada Bennett, es que ¿por qué es que en las comunidades latinas, inmigrantes, hay ese estigma, como un sentido negativo cuando uno habla de la salud mental? So ella dijo que cuando ella tiene que hablar con sus clientes y le dicen, mira, ustedes tienen que buscar una evaluación psicológica, lo primero que dicen es, la mayoría, lo que dicen es, yo no estoy loco, yo no soy loca. ¿Y para qué me está mandando? ¿Para qué me está mandando a una psicóloga? Para
Yes.
No soy loca, no soy loco, right? Lo primero que dicen. Entonces, pues ya quiere que nosotros hablemos de por qué es que nosotros tenemos esa ¿cómo se dice?
Pensamiento negativo.
Tienen un pensamiento, pero es una creencia, right? So es algo como que adentro de una vez, eso es lo primero que dicen, es como un instinto. Sí. So yo le dije a Bridget que, por ejemplo, en la República Dominicana, hay un Día de los Locos. No sé si existe en otros países. Ustedes pueden decir en los comentarios si existe.
En los Estados Unidos es todos los días.
Bueno. En la República Dominicana hay el Día de los Locos. Realmente la rama del estudio de esta profesión de psicología comparada a la medicina es nueva. La terapia en sí, como nosotros la entendemos hoy, como la vemos hoy, es algo nuevo en comparación a la medicina del oeste. So, vamos a decir 20, 30, no sé, como 40 años realmente es lo que tenemos que la gente están buscando y van y buscan terapia como nosotros les entendemos. Cuando la terapia realmente comienza con Sigmund Freud, él veía la terapia de su forma, era años, no era algo de que uno iba a ir por unos cuantos meses a hablar y bregar con los problemas de hoy y mejorarse. So, obviamente no era algo que no era accesible a la persona común. Eran las personas ricas y privilegiadas que tenían acceso a la salud mental. Ahora, en nuestros países, República Dominicana, otros países, los únicos que reciben ese tratamiento, esa consejería psicológica es, tell her I say Donald, Arthur said something. Sorry. En nuestros países, los únicos que le daban ese tratamiento psicológico inmediato son ¿quiénes? Los que van y lo ponen en la República Dominicana, lo que le decían manicomios, ¿verdad? Manicomios. Realmente personas ya muy, muy, muy enfermas. Lo que uno dice es loco. Uh-huh. So, y también lo que le dije a Bridget es, los inmigrantes, sean latinos, sean italianos, sean irlandeses, en cualquier momento, cuando un grupo de inmigrantes llega a los Estados Unidos con el historial que tiene este país, en masa, sí, usualmente vienen y pasan mucho, mucho trabajo, más trabajo de lo que uno se pueda imaginar por algunos de ellos. Por ejemplo, mi mamá, yo le digo, mami, ¿cómo fue que usted vino de un campo en la República Dominicana que no tenían toilet, no tenían plomería? Ellos tenían ¿cómo que se le dicen? Ahí se me fue la palabra. Pero no tenían toilet dentro de la casa, no había electricidad. Ellos vinieron realmente de un campo de la República Dominicana. ¿Cómo es que ella se ajusta a los 20 años de ese campo a Brooklyn a saber cómo tomar un tren, cómo bregar en la ciudad de Nueva York en el 1975? Imagínense. Nosotros como familiares de inmigrantes, como inmigrantes, somos unas personas que han pasado por tanto en la vida. Muchos de los clientes de Bridget, clientes que yo he visto, han tenido que cruzar países, el desierto, un río, para poder entrar en este país. So, cuando uno le dice, mira, si ustedes están traumados, si están pasando por el estrés, si están ansiosos, miran a uno como quien dice, esto no es nada comparado con lo que yo ya he pasado. La vida es difícil, la vida es trabajo, la vida es tener que pasar por desafíos que a veces uno dice, ¿cómo lo voy a hacer? Que para nosotros los inmigrantes muchas veces pensamos, ¿para qué yo voy a pagarle a alguien en una oficina, hablarle de mis problemas? ¿Cómo es que eso me va a ayudar? Igual, porque han pasado por tanto, pero también es falta de educación muchas veces, falta de saber que yo como terapeuta me entrenan en cómo ayudar a mis clientes ver las cosas diferentes, cómo ver sus vidas diferentes. Yo le dije a Bridget que mi filosofía de terapia es que si yo puedo ayudar a mis clientes verse diferente en el mundo y ver el mundo diferente, uno se va a comportar muy diferente en esas situaciones cuando la vida le presenta con más y más problemas. Igual, le dije a Bridget, yo puedo pasar una semana hablando de la razón por la cual es que uno pasa tanto trabajo para realmente convencer a los inmigrantes y convencer a las comunidades latinas y morenas, afroamericanas, jamaiquinas, de realmente convencerlos de que es necesario a veces hablar con alguien que no tiene nada que ver con tu vida, alguien que no tiene nada que ver con tu familia, alguien que puede ver tus problemas sin estar en el medio de los problemas, para darte una posición y tal vez una vista objetiva comparado a lo que tú estás viendo, lo que estás sintiendo. I added a little bit at the end of it. What I said is that, a lot of times what happens is that we don't talk to our immigrant populations, our brown and black populations, about the benefit of being able to talk to somebody that has no dog in the fight. So as a therapist, I'm not, by law, I can't talk to anybody else without your permission. So number one, right? So my husband jokes that I'm like a spy, because I go to work and I can come home and he says, "How was your day?" And I go, "It was all right." I can't tell him, what my clients have been telling me, because it's a secret. HIPAA, so what is the benefit of being able to talk to somebody that has no dog in the fight, is relatively objective when it comes to your life? And I've had to have conversations with my clients before where I tell them, look, I can give you all the tools, I can provide and I can suggest these tools, but it's still up to you to go and use them. I go back to my life. It doesn't impact me one way or another. You're the one who has to take this and decide whether you're going to make these changes or not. And so, that's a lot of what we have to break down as a community, as professionals, especially professionals, minority professionals, to say, guys, if the resources are there, take advantage of them. It helps. I've had clients who only come to me twice and they're better. It doesn't necessarily have to be a long-term thing. Le dije a Bridget que lo que nosotros también como profesionales hispanos y latinos, que tenemos que hemos logrado algo en nuestras vidas y en nuestras profesiones, tenemos que también hablar con nuestros clientes y educarlos de que, por ejemplo, yo como terapeuta por ley no puedo hablar con más nadie sobre tu vida. Lo que tú me digas en mi oficina es confidencial. Sí. Yo no puedo ir y hablar sin tu permiso con más nadie. So, eso tiene su beneficio también, porque muchas veces las personas se aguantan trauma, se aguantan el dolor y la depresión y la ansiedad solamente porque no quieren que todo el mundo en el vecindario lo sepa.
So, oh,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No,
Oh.
you go ahead. No,
So
you,
you're like talking, you're hitting on something that I want us to touch on tonight. So I think everyone understands what is stress. But can you tell us what is the difference between anxiety? What are the symptoms of anxiety?
Sure.
And what are the symptoms of depression? You
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
because those are two different things, and we might have symptoms of both and we don't know. And at
Or they
what
different in each person sometimes, which, that depending on the culture, depending on gender, um, yeah. So, and someone from made a great point. So most immigrants interpret trauma as part of the struggle.
that's me.
I love it. And trauma is seen as a normal part of life. Exactly. So, what's the difference between trauma and struggle? Right? Trauma, I like to explain to people, is something that happens generally to us, something that is jarring to our system, that is jarring to our view of the world, just jarring to our sense of self. And it's also jarring to our safety. And so that is, that's trauma. Trauma is something that tends to lead to nightmares. It can lead to memories and thoughts that you cannot control. It can lead to isolating yourself from other people. It can lead you to believe that everyone is dangerous. Everyone has it out for you, whether that be a certain race, whether that be a certain gender, whether that be a certain ethnicity or nationality. That's where trauma differs from regular stress. Right? Trauma lingers. Trauma tends to then impact how we honestly see ourselves in the world. Trauma makes you feel unsafe.
Yeah.
I'm not safe in my house. I'm not safe at school. I'm not safe anywhere. And so when you look at that, that would be delineating difference between trauma and just everyday stress, right?
Oh,
Like I'm stressed because I've got a massive amount of reports that I need to write. And I'm trying to juggle homeschooling, and I'm trying to juggle working from home, and I'm trying to juggle technological difficulties. That's stress. But it doesn't make me necessarily feel unsafe. I'm not having nightmares about it at night. And honestly, if I were to organize myself and I were to come up with these coping mechanisms, I'd be able to pretty much deal with it successfully. That's stress. That's everyday stress versus a traumatic event. So, nosotros estábamos hablando, yo y Bridget, de la diferencia entre el trauma en sí y el estrés, ¿verdad? El trauma puede ser muchas cosas diferentes. No es solamente algo violento que te pase. Puede ser, por ejemplo, algo que te pase que sea, vamos a decir, que se muere alguien y que se muere trágicamente de repente y había muchas cosas que tal vez no se habían resuelto en esa relación y puede ser algo traumático. Saber que un ser querido ha pasado por un trauma te puede causar trauma. I want to make sure I say that in English too. So, trauma is not just a violent act. Trauma, it can be something like losing a loved one when maybe there was a lot of unresolved issues and it jars you because it was unexpected. It could be something where it's a medical trauma. So let's say you have a stroke and now you can't trust your body. Imagine having a stroke and not being able to talk and not being able to walk anymore, and to have and have to go through physical therapy and have to depend on people when you were completely independent before then. That's a trauma.
Yeah.
Right? So le estaba diciendo a Bridget que el trauma de tal vez algo médico que te pase, por ejemplo, un derrame cerebral, que de repente no puedes hablar, no puedes caminar. Una persona independiente completamente y de repente está dependiendo de todo el mundo. De repente yo no me siento segura, me siento insegura en mi propio cuerpo. Imagínate, eso es trauma. Eso no es estrés regular. Where I lost where we were going with it. So trauma.
Mm-hmm.
When with his, so in Spanish. So esa es la diferencia. El trauma realmente puede causar pesadillas, puede causar memorias que de repente te vienen sin tú poder controlarlo, te puede causar aislarte de las otras personas, de pensar que, por ejemplo, todos los afroamericanos son malos porque alguien me robó que era afroamericano. Que todos los americanos son anti-inmigrantes por lo que uno ve en la noticia. Eso es trauma, en que yo de repente no me sienta segura donde vivo, donde voy a la escuela, donde trabajo, donde sea. Me impacta mi sentido de ser, a donde estoy, y en mi cuerpo a veces. Y entonces te impacta cómo realmente vives. Esa es la diferencia entre el trauma y el estrés. El estrés yo lo estoy pasando ahora mismo. Tengo que escribir reportes, darle educar a mis hijos en lo que estamos haciendo eso, lo de la educación virtual. Tengo que también bregar con todo lo del negocio. Eso es estrés cotidiano. Eso no es trauma porque yo tengo manera y formas de realmente controlarlo y bregar con eso, poniendo sistemas, poniendo horas que tengo que escribir reportes, poniendo eso. Eso es estrés. Eso ya no es trauma. Es una diferencia. And you had mentioned before, so anxiety, depression, what does that look like? Something that I have said, and I will always say, especially right now during COVID-19, and also during this mental health awareness space that we're in as a country, right? I do want people to know that you're supposed to feel sad. You're supposed to feel mad. You're supposed to feel worried. You're supposed to feel scared when those moments present themselves. We are supposed to have a wide range of emotions throughout our lives. And so, for example, right now, I don't know, for example, if, we're going to be able to go play baseball over the summer, right? Like I love playing baseball with my kids. We're part of the Little League. It's causing a little bit of anxiety of like, oh my gosh, well, how do we go back to that? How do I trust again to go and expose my kids to all that? That is, in my opinion, a natural response to what is happening to our world. I wouldn't deem myself necessarily to have a generalized anxiety disorder because it's not that. I'm naturally anxious about what's happening because there's an epidemic going on right now. If someone passes, if something sad happens and you're sad for a moment of time, that doesn't mean you're depressed. You are reacting to something sad in your life, which you're supposed to be sad about. The difference is, does the anxiety, do those anxious feelings, do those sad, depressed feelings impact your functioning in your life? Which means, so those anxious symptoms lead you to not be able to get out of your car because you're scared that someone who's standing right there is going to infect me with COVID-19? Does it impact my ability because I'm so anxious in that moment that I can't even leave my room because I am immobilized by those anxious thoughts? Same thing with depression, same thing with anger. Is it impacting my everyday functioning? That is always my rule of thumb. Lo que le dije a Bridget dice, ¿cómo es que uno sabe si está pasando por ansiedad, si está pasando por depresión? Y lo que yo siempre le digo a mis clientes es esto. Uno está supuesto sentirse en cualquier momento de nuestras vidas tristes, ansiosos, estresados, bravos y súper feliz. Uno está supuesto sentir todas esas emociones a tiempos apropiados en nuestras vidas. So, la diferencia es cuando esos sentimientos ansiosos te previenen en funcionar. Por ejemplo, si yo estoy tan ansiosa que no puedo salir de mi carro porque creo que esa persona que está ahí mimito me va a infectar con el COVID-19. cuando yo no puedo funcionar, no puedo proveerle los servicios que necesitan mis niños, la atención que necesitan mis niños, de tan triste y agotada me siento que ni puedo pararme de la cama. Esa es la diferencia entre sentirse triste y sentirse deprimido. Now, there's a lot of talk about functioning depression and functioning anxiety. Yes, there are people who function while still having a lot of these symptoms. Absolutely. And so those are the times when but obviously left untreated, it can go into a full blown major depressive disorder. It can go into a full blown generalized anxiety disorder. There are people, for example, who are misdiagnosed with depression and anxiety and ADHD, when actually what they have is post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow.
Because when you look at the diagnostic criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, many of the symptoms are there. Irritable, difficulty concentrating, restlessness, right? Like when you look at all those things, it really looks anxious, actually. Why? Because post-traumatic stress disorder basically says, not says, but it comes from the feeling of not feeling safe. It comes from the feeling that the world is a dangerous place because of a trauma. Generalized anxiety disorder generally, is not caused by a trauma. Now, it can be caused, obviously, by lingering, unresolved things. So, for example, the immigration process puts people into limbo a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily a trauma per se, but I don't know what to expect. I don't know if my spouse is going to be deported or not. I don't know if I'm going to have my spouse in 3 months or 4 months. I don't know if they're going to go to the consular visit and come back. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And then when those thoughts start to impact functioning, constant worry and anxiety, restlessness, irritability, can't sleep, getting headaches, generalized anxiety disorder, because at that point, it gets to the point where it impacts functioning. So those are some of the differences between just regular anxiety, anxious symptoms, depressive symptoms versus everyday struggles. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
everyday stress. So, lo que le expliqué a Bridget, so la diferencia entre ¿cuándo es que uno sabe? Tengo ansiedad, el desorden de ansiedad, un desorden de depresión. ¿Cómo sé yo la diferencia? So, por ejemplo, si tú te sientes tan deprimida y agotada que no te puedes parar de la cama, estás aumentado de peso rápido o estás rebajando de peso rápido sin razón. Si encuentras que no tiene ganas de nada, cuando tal vez no era así. Uno tiene que mirar y realmente evaluar cómo te está impactando. Ahora, puede ser solamente uno de esos síntomas y tú puedes funcionar bien, pero si lo dejas sin tratarlo, es como dejar un cáncer sin tratarlo. Crece, crece y crece y causa más y más problemas. Sí. So uno tiene que ir temprano, hablar con un profesional o una profesional para que ellos te ayuden, decir, ok, tienes este problema que está muy pequeño ahora mismo, si lo prevenimos ahora, no se va a desarrollar en algo más grande. También lo que le estaba explicando a Bridget es que hay muchas personas que han sido diagnosticadas erróneamente con ansiedad, con depresión, cuando realmente lo que tienen es desorden postraumático. Porque muchos de los síntomas del desorden postraumático dicen dificultades concentrándose, sintiéndose con miedo todo el tiempo, sintiéndose depresivos, se le hace difícil sentir muy, muy feliz y muy, muy bravo o muy, muy triste. Ese es el desorden postraumático. Pero también, obviamente, eso viene de un trauma. Ahora, hay muchos clientes que yo y Bridget vemos que están en el proceso de migración, que puede ser un proceso que causa mucha ansiedad. Uh-huh. Porque obviamente no sé si mi pareja va a estar aquí en 3 meses. No sé cómo voy a pagar mis biles sin él o ella. No sé si van a poder regresar de su visita consular. Ese estrés y esas preocupaciones, porque duran tanto tiempo, años a veces, sí, entonces se desarrolla ya a un desorden de ansiedad porque no lo puede controlar. So eso sí se puede causar y puede pasar cuando hay estrés que no se puede resolver. There's nothing you can do about it but wait, right?
Yes. So I know we are kind of at our
Oh,
time, but I do have one more
what?
question for you. Arthur asked this question, but it's also on my list.
Okay.
So I think, under COVID-19, pretty much everyone's stress level and general anxiety level has,
Everyone is
has been elevated, right?
absolutely. And
You
once
know,
again, if it hasn't been, and you're going through all these things, I usually tell people that means generally there's something wrong. If somebody goes through something really serious and really scary, and they come to me and they're like, but I'm fine,
todo
I
bien.
feel like there's something wrong because you're not reacting normally to a stressful situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can tell you I'm stressed. I can tell you my anxiety level, I have issues sleeping,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
can you give us some tools or
Sure.
some tips? So now we're at this heightened level of stress and anxiety. What
Yep.
are some things that and we as adults can do? And even if you can throw in some things that what can parents do to help their children?
Absolutely. So, first, I will say this: if you have children, they are only as healthy as you are. Si tienen niños, ellos solamente son tan saludables como tú eres saludable. So, si tú no estás saludable, ellos no van a estar bien. If
Sí.
you're not healthy, your children will not be okay. Number one. So that's why it is so important. It's very cliche to say self-care right now. But really, it's not going to the spa. It's not going to get a mani-pedi with the girls, since obviously the nail salons are closed right now. That's not necessarily what you need to do. A lot of times it's as simple as taking 5 to 10 minutes every day and allowing yourself to be mad, to be sad, to be scared, and think of all the things that you have pushed off into the background because you don't have time for it. Allow yourself at night, or it can be in the morning while you're meditating, whenever it is that it's convenient for you, to do 5 to 10 minutes. And I call them pity parties. I do them not all the time, but I do it when it's needed. When I was working with the sexual abuse victims and physical abuse victims, literally I would have to, on my way home, do a 15-minute debriefing, a little bit of a pity party. Why is the world so unfair? Why did this happen to this child? Why? So, right now with COVID, why is this happening? Why are we stuck at home? Why are people dying? Why can we have appropriate responses from, different people? Why? How am I going to deal with homeschooling? How am I going to deal with my job? Do I have a job? Am I going to have a job? There's so many things that come to mind that we tend to push to our background, especially as strong, resilient immigrant community. And we think to ourselves, just don't think about it. That's the worst thing we can do, actually. Um, what I tell my clients all the time is that if you think of our smartphones, there's apps running. I can check on my Samsung and I'll push the little button and it'll show me all these apps that were running. And I completely forgot that they were running. And what are they doing? They're draining my battery and they are slowing down my system. So what should I do? Open them up, make sure I don't need to do anything with it, and close it one by one, 5 to 10 minutes.
That's a
Take the
great
time.
point.
Think about everything that you need to. Let yourself cry. Let yourself be mad. Let yourself be. Just let yourself be for 5 to 10 minutes. And then at the end of that, you ground yourself. And what I mean by grounding yourself is this. You sit down and you go, okay, I've literally thought of all the bad things that I'm feeling, I'm just living right now. What's good? I start super basic. I'm breathing. One, obviously, considering the epidemic right now, that's huge. I thankfully have a roof over my head. I have food on the table. I am in generally good health. My children are healthy. My parents are healthy. You go on and you go on and you go on, and you think about all the things that you can be thankful for that then hopefully will lead you to think, okay, I got this. I can do this. We're going to get through this. By only doing that, by acknowledging that we are stressed, that we are scared, that we are depressed, that we are anxious, by acknowledging those things for 5 to 10 minutes and allowing yourself to feel it, you then can let go of it and then say, okay, so what is good? And if you do that for 2 weeks straight, if you're having issues sleeping, what I tend to have my clients tell me is that after 2 weeks, they start sleeping better again. And if I can get you sleeping better, you will feel better during the day because you're refueling, you have the energy that you need, and your actual system is getting the rest that it needs and the recovery that it needs. So that is number one.
Session.
This is your therapy session, Bridget. Para los otros en español ahora, Bridget me preguntó, ¿qué estrategias, qué consejos le tengo a los que están oyendo ahora mismo de cómo bregar con este estrés del COVID-19? Lo que yo le dije a ella es que muchas veces lo que nosotros tendemos en hacer es, si es algo negativo, si es un sentimiento negativo, el estrés, como somos una comunidad tan fuertes, una comunidad que realmente se da en el pecho, porque nosotros podemos sobrevivir cualquier cosa. Tendemos en no querer en pensar y pensamos que si no pensamos, entonces obviamente no me va a afectar. No, coge 5 a 10 minutos todos los días en la noche. Piensa, déjate pensar todas las cosas negativas, ansiosas, depresivas, con miedo, todo lo que has estado evitando durante el día. 5 a 10 minutos. Lo haces. Después de eso, coge el tiempo y entonces tú tienes que tomar cuenta de las cosas que están buenas en tu vida. Yo comienzo como muy básico. Estoy respirando. Con la situación de ahora, eso es primordial. Gracias a Dios, tengo un techo sobre mi cabeza. Tengo comida para darle a mis hijos. Tengo trabajo. Comienzo muy, muy básico y ya termino más dramático y más grande. ¿Pero por qué? Nosotros tenemos que darnos el tiempo de dejarnos sentir y entonces ya después poder dejar eso ya al lado, porque ya yo lo abrí. Es como nuestros teléfonos, que nosotros dejamos aplicaciones corriendo y le está usando la batería, usando el poder del teléfono. Nosotros hacemos lo mismo con el estrés, con la preocupación por la escuela, la preocupación del trabajo, la preocupación. Esos son todos apps en el cerebro de nosotros que nosotros a veces lo dejamos abierto sin darnos cuenta. Cuando uno dice no lo voy a pensar, no significa que lo estás cerrando, lo estás poniendo en el background. Entonces tú tienes que abrir eso, ponerle atención y cerrarlo. Abrirlo, cerrarlo, abrir, cerrar. Y entonces tomar cuenta de qué está bueno en tu vida. Porque todos tenemos algo, aunque sea insignificante, pero sí, ya cuando uno hace eso, ya uno puede decir, ok, puedo enfrentarme el próximo día. So that's the best tip I can give right now. And then obviously for our kids, if I'm doing that, show your kids how to do that. Have conversations with your children. What are they scared about? What are they worried about? And be honest and validate their feelings. Do not tell them not to worry about this because there's no way you can't worry about it. Therefore, I can't. They're going to worry about it. They're children. They don't understand. So a lot of times it's telling them, from reliable sources, please. The CDC, the World Health Organization, what are the realities of COVID-19 and what is being done to keep everybody safe. Uno cuando está hablando con nuestros hijos, por favor, sean honestos con ellos. Díganle la verdad basado en información que es ya de organizaciones que tienen una reputación buena. Por ejemplo, la Organización de la Salud Mundial, the WHO, el CDC. Toma esas informaciones. Obviamente, dependiendo de la edad del niño, se lo explica para que ellos entiendan que tú, tanto como sus maestros, sus doctores, están tratando de hacer lo mejor que uno pueda para mantenerlo seguro. Igual, Cuídense. Take care of yourselves. If you do not take care of yourself, you cannot take care of your children. Si ustedes no se cuidan, no van a poder cuidar a sus hijos. There's a reason why in airplanes they tell you to put the mask on yourself before you put it on your child. If you pass out, your child is passing out with you. You have to take care of yourself. Si uno, en los aviones, le dicen, pónganse la máscara primero y entonces se lo pone el niño. Porque si tú te desmayas, el niño se va a desmayar también. Cuídense, take care of yourself. It's not a luxury, it is necessary.
Wow. Wow. I mean, Andrea, we can talk like this all night.
Oh, yes.
All night, all week.
And
But
apparently, I dance bachata. Yes, I can. I'm Dominican. Hold on, Arthur.
Arthur's working on a beat down right now.
Hold on, Arthur. How dare you? Thank you, Arthur. Yes,
La respuesta, Arthur, es sí. Okay.
Arthur preguntándole a una dominicana si baila bachata. Ay, ¿cómo va?
No, la respuesta es sí con actitud.
Con actitud.
Sí.
Sí.
So, thank you, everyone, for tuning in to tonight's episode of the Immigrants Bridge Show. Our special guest tonight was Miss Andrea Estrella Roa, a licensed marriage and family therapist, not just a professional colleague, but also a very dear friend of mine. So we're so grateful that you were able to come on and just share this hour with us. You have walked us down the road of why there is a mental health stigma associated with, Black and brown populations, Caribbean, Latina populations. You have talked us through what is trauma. You have talked us through what is the difference between regular stress, anxiety, and depression. And you've also given us some tools, some real tools about self-care, why it's important, and very two simple steps that we can do for ourselves and also teach to our children. So I would say that is a whole lot of information. So if you
I can talk for days. But
we're like the wrong people to get together.
You're right. We do have, there's so many resources though, and I want to make sure to share this. If you do want to talk to somebody, if you want to just as advice or just to vent, reach out. If you're in the Central Florida area or anywhere really in the US, in the United States, reach out to your local mental health association. So here in Central Florida, it's the Mental Health Association of Central Florida. You can call them and they will try to find you a provider who speaks your language and a provider who may have who might take insurance, who might do sliding scale, who might be offering like a free session up front. They are offering so much information right now that you can take advantage of for free. Also, for domestic violence victims and sexual violence victims, most counties have free services for you. So please reach out and get counseling and just get somebody to at least talk to. Yo le quería decir a Bridget que no quería terminar hoy sin darles recursos. Si ustedes sí piensan que quisieran buscar a alguien para que le dé consejería, para hablar, un consejo simple. En la mayoría de los estados, en la mayoría de las regiones, sí hay una asociación de salud mental. Ustedes pueden buscarlo. Aquí en la Florida Central se llama Mental Health Association of Central Florida. Si tú lo buscas en Google, en el internet, entras, llamas y ellos tratan de buscarte a alguien que hable tu idioma, alguien que pueda tal vez tomar tu seguro, si no tienes seguro, alguien que tal vez está ofreciendo servicios a los que tienen bajos recursos o tal vez gratis para la primera sesión. Uno no sabe. Llama. Por favor, lo único que toma es llamar y buscar ayuda cuando lo necesitas.
Yes, and Miss Andrea actually had sent me great information that I can share with you. If you are interested in receiving this information, I have copied and pasted some of the resources here in the comments and los comentarios. But if you want the full packet, I can email that to you. Just drop your email here and I will go ahead and forward you those resources.
You could probably put it on your documents or files tab under your page.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh, great. So I will put them in
Yeah, even look at
on
there.
my page so that you guys have them.
Yeah.
Also, I did put up Miss Andrea's card. So if you do need a mental health evaluation, she is the
Right.
best in the
Oh,
whole wide world.
you're the best.
So you can certainly contact her. And I've also put her Facebook page. There is a
Thank
link
you.
to her Facebook page in the comments. So make sure that you reach out. And even though many of us as immigrants, we are bred to be tough. We are
Yes,
bred to survive. We are bred to be overcomers, and we certainly are, but we don't have to do that by ourselves.
and
We'll
actually,
help.
show of strength to allow yourself to be vulnerable and allow someone to help you when you need it. Nosotros no tenemos que siempre ser fuerte, pero no solamente eso, uno es fuerte, uno es sobreviviente, pero también coge fuerza y coge valentía de decir, necesito ayuda.
Mhm.
Y ir a las personas apropiadas que sí te puedan ayudar. Eso es fuerza, eso es valentía, no hacerlo todo solo.
Yes. So, you guys have received a lot of information. If you missed any part of this, of course, it will be on our page. You can go ahead and go back and watch the video. I will also share it to your page, Andrea,
Thank you.
so people can see it under AER Mental Health. But it was an absolute pleasure
Thank
to be
you.
with you
That's
all.
my
Thank you
honor.
so much, mwah, for joining us today. And because tonight we have taken steps of self care, getting information to help us process, tomorrow we will have our gratitude party. So remember, tune in for episode 20 of the Immigrants Bridge Show. It's Friday, y'all. It's happy hour time. So I don't know about you, but my tequila is still on my desk.
Mine would be hot. I just don't have it with me.
Ready. So tomorrow we're just gonna, kind of bring it down and just relax, be grateful for life, we have health, we have strength, and we
So
have
much.
one another.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I'm always grateful. We'll definitely have you back on the show because
This is
there's so much.
I know.
So
I
much.
could do it all week, I'm telling you.
There's so many angles. We didn't talk about domestic violence. We didn't talk about a lot of things. So I'm sure you will be a repeat special invited guest.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Again, we're grateful that you've been here. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, episode 20. That's our Immigrants Bridge Happy Hour. I will see you tomorrow. Take care and be safe.